best FPS settings for Harry Potter while still maintaining beautiful visuals. Which settings can you turn off? Which settings should you need on? And what is actually stealing all your VRAM? Is upscaling FSR2 worth it or not? I'll answer all your questions in this video. Let's go through every single option and I'll try to give you as much information as you need. First, we're going to go for windowed full screen here. There is no dedicated full screen option, so you're essentially going to be playing in borderless. Your rendering resolution will be what your monitor is set to because you have to play in windowed full screen mode. Let's ignore anti-aliasing for now because we're going for upscale time. You will have AMD FSR and there's also DLSS. Since I'm on an AMD graphic card, there's no DLSS for me, but you will have also the choice to test out AMD FSR. If you choose FSR, what happens is that your rendering resolution is being lowered to 67%, which already leads instantly to better frames. And then AMD FSR uses upscaling methods to still make your game look great, aligning that with your FPS. So it's upscaling the 17707-960 to 2560x1440p in the situation needed to get the best quality, performance, ultra performance out of it. So you can play around with these four to already get a nice boost in FPS. We'll show you, we're going to put VSync to off. And the frame rate, we can technically cap straight up to your monitor hertz. So you could be doing the 60 FPS, you could do the 144 FPS, but I'm mostly going with the uncapped here because even if your frame rates are higher than your refresh rate, if you then dip down due to more going on the screen and you're going from 180 FPS down to 140, you won't really notice that. But if you're capping it to 144 and then you're dipping down to 80, you will definitely feel that. Interestingly enough, you would think that pumping up the field of view is actually going to steal frames from you. But it has turned out that with a higher field of view, often you do also see a nice boost in frames. So give that a whirl for your system. I've noticed my frames to be higher, 10 to 15, by actually pumping field of view up to +20, and the game just looks better. You definitely want to turn off motion blur, depth of field, chromatic aberration, and filmic grain. Now, if you do like depth of field and it doesn't give you nausea, you can turn that on. You won't be taking that big of a hit on the performance. It should only result in a couple of frames. You can actually see it in the top right corner. We're now around 148 FPS. And if I actually turn it off, it goes back to 156, 55. So we're losing roughly like 8 FPS due to depth of field. You also slightly notice that in VRAM usage. So this is a bump in your VRAM. If you have a graphic card that generally not has much VRAM, think twice about on or off. Now let me turn everything from high to ultra, and interestingly enough, straight up losing 30 FPS. So we can see live essentially the impact of what we're doing here right now. For effects, the biggest difference is between ultra and high. If you actually go from high to medium, there's not that much of a giant FPS impact anymore. So you can keep effects on high. The material quality we should be able to leave on ultra. It does not impact the VRAM or the FPS very much. But when we're looking at fog quality, you can actually see in the description that it's already going to be tanking because it says set the quality of the volumetric fog. And everything that has volumetric in it, such a nice word, is going to impact FPS heavily. And here the biggest jump is again between ultra and high. If you go from high to medium, it's a minimal impact. So ultra to high is like 8 FPS, to medium it's another 2. So if you're going for maximum visual quality, you would set this to high. Foliage you would assume to have a gigantic impact on your FPS and reduce everything greatly. It does actually not. It does have 0 impact on your VRAM when you put it lower. So you could just go from ultra down to high. You notice that it gives like 1-2 FPS more. And for some people, these 1-2 FPS more are the difference between playable and unplayable. But it also gives the most beauty in the game. So you want to keep that at high. Post-processing quality again has the highest impact between high and ultra. It does give a nice boost in FPS still when you're going from high down to medium. It will tank the quality of the picture. So if you can keep it on high, that's fantastic. but on medium, it should give you the most FPS boost. Low in this case is actually not worth it because the bonus you get from low is comparison medium to high is like 5-6 FPS difference to low is another +1 FPS. Funny story with the quality of shadows. It has zero impact on my FPS. Nothing is actually changing with the shadow quality. For the texture quality, if you have enough VRAM, because that's where it's tanking the most, keep that on ultra. If you have a graphic card that generally does not have much VRAM, I would put it down to medium. For view distant quality, the biggest jump is here actually setting it to low when it comes down to your VRAM. If you have enough VRAM, keep it at medium, even high. But if you have not much VRAM on your graphic card, on low, the game will still look beautiful. It doesn't have that much of a qualitative impact on the game fidelity, but this will have the biggest difference in performance. The population quality is only down to your CPU. So if you have a very old CPU, that one goes down to medium. Again, here we're looking at what has the big jump in difference. And from ultra to high, yes, but the older your CPU is, the lower you should essentially go here. Population sets the quality of non-essential NPCs and creatures in the world. So here, it does not hurt to have this also on low. It's not like this will influence the actual good-looking quality of the game. Now, we're not going to be turning ray tracing on because that's going to just delete all your FPS. This would be the settings now on my system, and you can see we can easily fly over the world with a nice 120 FPS. Everything is working out very good. In Hogwarts, our FPS are also nice and stable. I mean, keep in mind we have a 6900 XT. We don't have our CPU overclocked in any way, so we're like having over the 100 FPS as we want to have it. And the game just looks stunningly beautiful, especially when we're now getting closer to the ground and when we're running around. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The game is just as you wanted, a stunning graphical experience. Now let's walk down this little aisle here without FSR on, and then we're going to be turning FSR on to just give you a feeling for what FSR does with the upscaling and everything. Walk into this little greenery. Hello, plants. Everything looks good. Now let's talk about FSR and what you have here. FSR again reduces your rendering resolution to 67% on quality. You're looking for balance, performance, ultra performance, and you notice it just reduces the rendering resolution more and more, and then upscales it harder and harder. So if we're choosing ultra performance right now with an upscale sharpness of 0.5, did you notice we are actually not even getting an FPS impact, but the game looks noticeably worse? Yes, obviously, you're having now a lower resolution getting upscaled, but since my graphic card is so powerful, that does not help me with my FPS impact. The sweet spot for the FSR settings, and you have to try that for your own system, is balanced, because you're still at a very good resolution to get that upscale. This is 1506 on 848 in comparison to 960. So you're still being very good off. For me, FSR does not lead to any higher FPS. I actually do get lower FPS, but that's because my graphic card is hungry and wants to be used. You do notice, though, the graphical quality is still absolutely there, and it might on your system lead up to 10-20 FPS more if you're actually using FSR. And again, if your system gets taxed extreme because you're flying around, the FSR is essentially then going to revert to the lower render scale at times to keep your FPS just nice and stable. And as you can see, we're not having any dips. We're essentially staying around the 80, 90. It's going a little bit up and down. You notice where the grounds blur out in between a little bit. And that's due to the FSR essentially doing its job of then, gradually upscaling, rescaling everything around you. Screenshots of the settings are in the description below. I hope this helped you with your Hogwarts Legacy needs. I'll do this for upcoming releases left and right to give you the most information possible and get all your games looking good. If you're looking for a Warzone optimization guide, that is right here.